You ever hear about Jackie Chan?
Probably now everybody's so excited. Yeah!
You may be surprised that he isn't just the star of Skip Trace.
Thank you so much. Just unbelievable. You know, I never thought I can get an Oscar.
Here are the nominees for performance by an actor in a leading role.
Don't underestimate the things that I would do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, bringing me out the dark.
The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The scars of your love, they leave me breathless. They can't help feeling.
Rolling in the Deep. Es un clásico.
Look at how they massacred my boy!
But that he's also been involved in some of the greatest action movies ever made. None greater, in my opinion, than Drunken Master 2, or The Legend of the Drunken Master here in the United States. This film has some of the most insane stunt work and choreography that I've ever seen in a film. But there's one moment from the beginning of that movie that made me 100% sure I was in for a masterpiece when I sat down to watch this one. And no, it's not that one, and it's not that one, and it's not that one. It's this one. That's right, Jackie Chan just went out of a window in 3 cuts. And I know that doesn't sound good, and you might be asking yourself, why is this good? You ask yourself. Well, first, thanks for asking. Second, okay, so when you decide to make a movie, you have to place a camera and actors in certain places and then hit the record button, or like operate a crank or something. This movie was shot on film, it probably was still a button. Anyway, every single cut you see in a movie is a new setup that needs to maintain continuity of place. Now, continuity of place in film,
I made it the fuck up,
to describe why these 3 shots are perfect choices. Now this is just my opinion, and continuity of place is not a real thing, but it is because I made it up, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Where you put the camera is where the audience is watching the action from, so you need to maintain continuity of place. And it should remain consistent unless you have a really good reason. And some filmmakers are good enough to have a reason good enough to not keep the place consistent and to break continuity. Here's a famous example. In Yasujiro Ozu's Late Spring, we have this establishing shot that says these characters are going to sleep in a hotel in Japan, which hotels in Japan used to be, and probably still are somewhere, tatami mats that you lay on the floor. Not important right now. These 2 characters, a father and daughter, are staying in this hotel and they're about to go to bed. They have a conversation before they go to bed, and basically the entire scene, from the establishing shot of them sitting on their bedrolls, has been taking place in the bed area. But then we cut to a vase which is in the room. Now, before this cut, the room was not where we were. We were specifically by the bedsides, but that vase means something. And you know why it means something? Because he cuts to it twice. This wasn't a mistake in editing. This wasn't a problem with the footage they had. This vase means something to the character. She's thinking about it. Now, I'm not gonna tell you what that cut means. I'm not your flippin' mom, okay?
okay?
Point being, it does something interesting. Ozu's allowed to do that, and it breaks continuity of place. But that's good, and okay, and interesting, because it's subjective filmmaking, and we love subjective filmmaking. These 3 cuts perfectly keep us in the action and also give a sense of movement in a really great way. And each cut is motivated by the simplest motivation, which is the movement of an actor. We start on the train, we see Jackie jump out of the window, we see him on the side of the train, and then we see him on top of the train. Did you notice where all of those camera setups are located? They are on, or entirely framed, by the train. Now that's important because you could do a ton of trickery to get this jumping out of a window stunt done quickly. You could shoot it in a wide, which would help put in a stunt person, but Jackie Chan would never do that. Or you could do some flashy filmmaking with a camera pass on a window tracking Jackie the whole way to get the stunt done all in one shot. And while oneers are cool, we don't need one here. Oneers are simply a tool, but they're not by default good filmmaking. Don't listen to what they tell you on Twitter.
There's always that sort of get out of jail card that you have with a movie. Well, you know, we might be able to cut around this, or we might take that scene out. That's not possible on this film.
So, those are both solutions to the problem, and there's probably way more than that. But the way Drunken Master 2, the movie, The Legend of the Drunken Master 2, the movie, show, Drunken Master 2, Drunk Master, the second, Drunken Master 2 chose to do it, and if you call yourself a cinephile,
Stop doing that!
you're probably one of those losers that thinks that oneers are always good, and you're probably gonna bring up that scene of Lisa Neeson jumping over a fence, and like commented and subscribe about it below or something. But here's the reason why those two things are different. Liam Neeson jumping over a fence in 50 cuts or whatever is in the middle of a chase scene through an alleyway. And an alleyway is a static location for an action scene and will always put the filmmakers at a disadvantage because it's boring. If your action scene is in an alleyway, you better have either a weapon, stuff for people to jump off of, or some very good Jeopardy, or, even better than very good Jeopardy, actors doing crazy acrobatics, because alleyways will always be worse than trains. And they're even trying to add acrobatics clearly, but they're failing miserably. And this makes sense, because the filmmakers just threw every single cut into the frame that they could. It's actually completely absurd. This whole action scene has this many cuts. It's like they thought that the more editing you include in a movie, the better the movie is. Put plainly though, it takes Jackie 4 seconds and 3 cuts to get out of that window, whereas it takes Liam Neeson this many cuts, and it takes him about 5 seconds to get over a fence. That is really not that crazy. And I've spoken of the rhythm of a scene, but when you add cuts to a movie, you're kind of dictating a certain visual rhythm, like a piece of music. Keeping control of this as a filmmaker is incredibly important in any kind of film, because whenever you cut, the audience will need to get acclimated to the new shot, and thus will need even just a few extra frames to process the new staging and blocking from the new angle. This is even more crucial in an action scene, because if your cuts outpace the actions that your character takes, then the actual effort that goes into doing a stunt will go completely unnoticed, which is part of the fun of making an action movie. So it is in the action filmmaker's best interest to have each cut encapsulate about 3 actions per setup. And while this isn't a strict rule, this editing is prevalent in Hong Kong action, and it's part of why those movies are typically seen as the pinnacle of action filmmaking. The punches, kicks, and slashes are always clear, snappy, and they're rarely outpaced by the editing. In the scene in Drunken Master, we already went over how each action gets enough time to breathe in our aforementioned 3 cuts, but the whole scene has this kind of natural accordion-like rhythm where it's contracting and expanding constantly. It's like watching a great conductor wave that friggin' wand and make the band play it just right. When you compare the two side by side, we can just tell that everything in the Jackie scene is completely clear. Each cut seems to mean something, whereas the Taken scene is completely jarring. On top of that, the cuts in the Taken scene are hiding the reality of the stunt, whereas Jackie's 3-shot setup here means that he likely had to do this window jump just as we see it a few times to get it just right. There's no hiding the reality of the cut. There's no cross-cutting, nothing is hidden. Just a guy jumping out of a window. It's exactly as it needs to be editing-wise. We see the exact reality of the stunt exactly as it needs to be, from 3 distinct and expressive angles, and then we move on to the next thing. And also, for a more plot-driven analysis here, in terms of jeopardy in the scene,
Kebert Zella.
Liam is just running from the cops. He has an obstacle, something that really shouldn't stand in the way of our action hero. It's just a fence. And the fact that it does stand in his way is comical. But Jackie here is effortless. He moves like water. I love him. It's clear that he's our hero here. And technically, the Taken scene does maintain continuity of place. The place is a chase scene in an alleyway. This alleyway is very non-distinct, but there are obstacles that must be climbed. Simple enough. But one thing about continuity of place is that the more indistinct your place, the easier it will be to maintain continuity of place. So the scene is full of vagaries in terms of place, and this does work to the filmmaker's benefit, but an alleyway will simply be less evocative than a train by default. Again, alleyways will always be worse than trains. And this brings us back to shooting this in a wide and putting in stuntmen. The biggest problem with doing that is that it breaks the continuity of place. The stunt is inherently connected to the train, and since it starts inside the train, it should end on top of the train if that's where we're going. Otherwise, the scene would lose the train as being part of the mise-en-scène between these 4 or 5 cuts. It's important to have it there. It's important to make sure that we're close to it in this moment. And of course, the filmmakers clearly know this, as we've established our action on top of the train, so the filmmakers now add a wide from below to give some more visual context and to give us more things to look at, the oblivious marketgoers below. And then they go back on top to get us in the action and display the stakes of getting caught by the guards. And I love this shot, by the way. And then they drop below the train to add a level of verticality to the scene, and now we're in a crouched fighting scene with a polearm versus an unarmed Jackie. It all feeds into each other perfectly, and while there's no exact right way to do it, in fact, there's no right way to do anything. Drive with your feet, pee in the shower, drink iced coffee, live your life. Anyway, this observation is ultimately a small detail, but when a movie gets all the small details right, then you know it's gonna be a good movie. It's just perfect filmmaking craft, and I hope I've inspired you to give it a watch. Subscribe to my YouTube zone, pat me on the Patreon zone, and follow me on the Twitter zone for more gobbledygook, and I'll see you in the next Brie Mabel Movie Moments, or whatever this series is called. I don't know. Bye!